So I'm starting this video from the inside of the house because my two darling little children weren't being quiet enough to let me do any actual video recording without a ton of interjection. So we're starting in here. I'm doing this video in large part because I found that the other DIY waterfall videos were insufficient for the true novice. So to put it into some perspective, I'm about as novice as you can get with this kind of thing. I am a single mom of, like I said, 2 little kids and a cute lab, and I know nothing. I moved into this house several years ago, and when I moved in, this section was basically as it is now, just dirt with one rhododendron bush and a pretty significant slope from the porch down to the wall of my neighbor's home. I live in a townhome. So what we decided to do is put in a little bit of a retaining wall so that I could build up the soil a little bit, create a little sitting area down there at the bottom, and then use the natural slope to put in upon this waterfall. What I found is that there was a couple of things that were lacking in some of the DIY videos. For example, how do you get power to it? How do you put the piping in? Is there really another way of installing a catchment system that wasn't a prefabricated kit that cost several $100s? And the answer is that there are alternatives. So what we have down there that you can't really see because my darling son is in the way is actually a 12-inch catch basin. This is used for at the bottom of a spigot.
I wasn't even playing the whole time.
That's okay. For drainage from rainfall from your house. What we did, and this wasn't my idea, full disclosure, the kits were going to be too large for what I needed. This space isn't really big enough for a kit. So we took a 12-inch catch basin. This is the instructions for it. It's a little rough because it's been sitting outside and caught some of the elements. 12-inch catch basin kit. And you can see from the schematic here, because this is already buried, that at the bottom there is a section for a pipe. This is meant to connect to a sewer system. We don't need that here. We just need to have enough volume for the water. So what we did is we took the 6-inch pipe, capped it off on the one end, and that pipe runs from here to over there. That gives us the volume that we need without creating as much space or taking up as much space. We sealed it all up with a combination of leak seal and PVC cement. And I think that there might be something else on there too. Sealed it up really good. Right now we've got some the pond liner covering this up just to keep all the debris out of it while we're finishing up the step out and putting the rocks in place. So one of the other things that the DIY videos don't mention is how to power it. Now it's pretty straightforward that you're going to want to have an extension cord, but one of the recommendations that I actually got from a guy that I've been seeing is that for a situation where, especially we're going to have little kids and a dog and stuff like that, dog that might dig, is you want to protect the power source. So we buried some PVC pipe with the extension cord in it. We used some connectors, some elbows, and then again cemented them in and glued them in to keep the rain out of it. I live in the Pacific Northwest, so we get a substantial amount of rain, and we wanted to keep the water out of it, and we wanted to keep it protected from any digging dogs or anybody that might accidentally get to where they're not supposed to be. So the benefit of doing it this way is even if the water level goes up, it would have to go up pretty high to get into this. This is going to connect ultimately down into the pump that we're going to put in here. So if you're worried about powering it and keeping the water out of it, this was a really, really good option. And again, it was really straightforward just to get some PVC and some elbows like this. And then we just buried it under right here. You can see the top section that's not buried yet. Okay, honey. And then it comes out over here at the top end. Again, pops out over the top. So even if it rains a whole ton, being that this is the Pacific Northwest, you're not going to get any water that's going to come up higher than this and be able to get down into it. Then the power cord's going to go run along underneath my step. Ignore all the mess, keeping it real here. And power it here. I think this is is it a 16 gauge or an 18 gauge? I can't remember what was recommended to me. I think it's 16 gauge. 50 foot indoor outdoor 16 gauge is what was recommended to me. So that's what I went with. So those are a couple of things that were never really mentioned in a lot of the other videos that I've been watching. I wanted to do this first video here for the real basics of how you even get it started. One of the things that they recommended was, one of the other videos I watched, was making sure that this is going to be a couple inches lower than whatever deck or porch or patio or whatever it is that you're working with, because you are going to be filling the top of this with gravel. We probably didn't dig this quite as low as we needed to, but I'd say that's a good inch and a half probably. Yeah. So it'll probably be sufficient for what we need. And I'm going to be putting some capstones along here too to kind of refine it so it'll look a little bit nicer. Now what I'm doing is going to be stepping this out so that there's a nice placement area for the rocks. Right now I'm just kind of playing with some of the stones I had left over from the retaining wall that I built on this side, because I figured that'd be a good way to utilize them and reduce my costs.
And
so
it would be just to start from a pile of dirt and just have a low area and some hard dirt so that rock can't just right down through.
Yep. So we're going to start with the bubbler up here. The bubbler's currently being drilled out right now. We'll be picking it up on Monday or Tuesday. And in the meantime, we're going to step this out, lay down some pond liner, and start getting these rocks placed.
And pick out the best bubble rock you guys can find.
Pick out the best bubbler rock you can find. Yeah, I decided to go with the bubbler rock just because I liked that natural look of it, and it creates a little bit of a water fountain effect kind of at the top, as opposed to one of those diffusers that just kind of shoot the water straight out. That way, if you're on the other side of my retaining wall right here, you'll still be able to see it and enjoy it, and it just gives it that extra little element. And then when we get closer to putting in the pump, we'll talk about the pump that I went with, and we're going to see how this goes. This is an experiment on all levels.
Yeah, water features.
Yep, an experiment with water features, an experiment with retaining walls, and an experiment with the YouTube video for a DIY pondless waterfall.